The golden chandeliers cast warm light across the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Hotel, where San Francisco's elite had gathered for the annual Children's Hope Foundation Gala. Among the sea of designer gowns and tailored suits, one person stood, out not for what she wore, but for the genuine warmth in her eyes as she knelt beside a young patient in a wheelchair. Elena Martinez adjusted the little girl's blanket with tender care, whispering something that made the child giggle despite the oxygen tube in her nose. As the hospital's youngest social worker, Elena had volunteered to accompany some of their long-term patients to tonight's fundraiser. Her simple black dress, borrowed from her roommate, felt out of place among the luxury surrounding her, but she didn't care. These children deserved to feel special, even if just for one night. From across the room, Sebastian Crawford watched this gentle scene unfold. The 29-year-old CEO of Novatech Industries had attended dozens of these charity events, usually as a calculated business move. Write a check, shake some hands, leave early. But something about the woman in black held his attention in a way that surprised him. Sebastian had built his fortune creating revolutionary medical software that helped hospitals worldwide save more lives. His success had made him one of the youngest billionaires in the country, but it had also built walls around his heart. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford when everyone wanted something from him. "Mr. Crawford?" His assistant appeared beside him. "The foundation director would like to introduce you to some donors," Sebastian barely heard her. He was watching Elena help the little girl sip from a juice box, her face lighting up with pure joy at such a simple moment. There was something about her that felt real in a world full of facades. "Give me a moment," he murmured, setting down his untouched champagne. Elena was telling the children a story about brave knights and magical kingdoms when a shadow fell across their small circle. She looked up to see a tall man with dark hair and the most intense green eyes she'd ever encountered. His expensive suit marked him as one of the wealthy donors, but something in his expression seemed different from the others who had stopped by for photo opportunities. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Sebastian said softly, his voice carrying a warmth that surprised even him. The children looked up expectantly, and Elena felt her cheeks warm under his gaze. "Not at all. We were just sharing some stories." Sebastian knelt down to their level, his movements careful and respectful. "What kind of stories?" 8-year-old Marcus, who rarely spoke to strangers, piped up excitedly. "Elena tells the best stories. She says we're all heroes in our own adventures." "Is that so?" Sebastian's eyes met Elena's, and she saw something flicker there. Not pity for the children, but genuine interest. "Everyone has a story worth telling," Elena said simply. "These kids have more courage in their little fingers than most adults have in their whole bodies." For the next hour, Sebastian found himself completely absorbed in their small world. He listened to the children's dreams. Marcus wanted to be a doctor. Little Sophia dreamed of dancing on stage, and 10-year-old Jake planned to build robots that could help other sick kids. Elena facilitated these conversations with such natural grace that Sebastian forgot about the business deals waiting for his attention. When it was time for the children to return to the hospital, Sebastian helped Elena gather their things. Their hands brushed as they both reached for Sophia's stuffed elephant, and Elena felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. "Let me help you get them to the van," Sebastian offered. Elena hesitated. She'd heard about Sebastian Crawford. Who hadn't? But the man beside her seemed nothing like the cold corporate figure described in business magazines. "That's very kind, but I'm sure you have important people to meet." "No one more important than these little ones," he replied, and Elena heard the sincerity in his voice. As they walked through the hotel's marble lobby, Sebastian carrying Sophia, who had grown tired, Elena felt as though she was seeing him without his armor. He spoke gently to each child, remembered their names, and seemed genuinely interested in their well-being. Outside, as the hospital van pulled away with tired but happy children waving from the windows, Elena and Sebastian stood alone under the soft glow of street lamps. "Thank you," Elena said. "You didn't have to do that, but it meant everything to them." "They're remarkable," Sebastian replied. "But so are you. The way you care for them, the light in your eyes when you talk to them, it's beautiful." Elena felt her breath catch. Men in his position usually saw her as invisible, just another hospital employee. "I love what I do. These kids teach me something new every day about strength and hope." "I'd like to learn more about that," Sebastian said quietly. "About hope, I mean. I feel like I've forgotten what it looks like." There was such vulnerability in his admission that Elena's heart ached for him. Despite his wealth and success, she sensed a loneliness that matched her own. "Maybe we could have coffee sometime?" Sebastian asked, then quickly added, "I mean, if you'd like to. No pressure." Elena studied his face in the lamplight. Behind the polished exterior, she saw someone searching for something real. "I'd like that," she said softly. As Sebastian's driver opened the car door, he turned back to Elena. "There's something about you that makes me want to be better than I am." "You don't need to be better," Elena replied. "You just need to be yourself." That night, as Elena rode the bus back to her small apartment, she couldn't stop thinking about the gentle way Sebastian had spoken to the children, or how his eyes had softened when he looked at her. She'd never met anyone like him, not just because of his wealth, but because of the careful way he'd handled her heart without even touching it. Meanwhile, Sebastian sat in his penthouse office, staring out at the city lights but seeing only Elena's face. For the first time in years, he felt something stirring in his chest that had nothing to do with business or success. It felt like hope. Neither of them knew that this chance encounter would change everything, or that the gentle promise Sebastian would make to her in the days to come would transform both their lives forever. All they knew was that something had begun between them, something precious and fragile and full of possibility. 3 weeks after the gala, Elena found herself looking forward to Sebastian's daily text messages with an anticipation that surprised her. What had started as that promised coffee date had grown into evening walks through Golden Gate Park, quiet, dinners at tucked-away restaurants, and conversations that stretched long into the night. Sebastian had been true to his word about wanting to learn about hope. He visited the children's hospital regularly now, not for publicity, but because Elena had shown him how much joy could be found in the smallest moments. He would arrive after his board meetings, still in his business suits, but his entire demeanor would soften the moment he walked through those hospital doors. "You're different now," Elena observed one evening as they sat on a bench overlooking the bay. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, and Sebastian's hand rested gently over hers. "Different how?" he asked, though he already knew. Being with Elena had awakened parts of himself he'd buried beneath years of corporate armor. "Lighter," she said, turning to face him. "Like you're not carrying the world on your shoulders anymore." Sebastian brought her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her palm. "That's because I'm not carrying it alone anymore." Their relationship had developed slowly, carefully, like two people who understood that what they were building was too precious to rush. Sebastian had been patient with Elena's hesitation about his wealth and status, proving through his actions that he saw her as an equal partner, not a charity case or a trophy. Elena, in turn, had shown Sebastian what it meant to love without agenda. She never asked for expensive gifts or exclusive access to his world. Instead, she valued the quiet moments when he would play piano for her in his apartment, or when he would listen intently as she shared stories about her work with families in crisis. One rainy Thursday evening, Sebastian picked Elena up from the hospital after an particularly difficult day. She'd lost a patient, a little boy who had reminded her of Marcus, and her usual bright spirit was dimmed with grief. "Come here," Sebastian said gently, pulling her into his arms in the back seat of his car. He'd dismissed his driver and taken the wheel himself, understanding that Elena needed privacy for her tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his chest. "I know you had that dinner with investors tonight. Elena, look at me." He tilted her chin up until their eyes met. "There is nothing more important to me than being here with you right now. That little boy was lucky to have you caring for him. But I couldn't save him." Elena's voice broke. "You loved him," Sebastian said firmly, "and sometimes that's the most powerful thing we can do." He drove them to his penthouse apartment, where he ran a warm bath for Elena while she called the boys' parents to check on them. Sebastian watched her comfort a grieving family over the phone, offering resources and support even in her own pain, and he fell even deeper in love with her generous heart. Later, as Elena soaked in the warm water, Sebastian sat on the bathroom floor beside the tub, reading to her from her favorite book of poetry. His voice was soothing, and gradually Elena felt the tension leave her shoulders. "Sebastian," she said softly. "Yes? Thank you for understanding, for not making me feel guilty about caring so much." He set the book aside and reached for her hand. "Your capacity to love is what makes you extraordinary. I never want you to apologize for that." That night, they made love for the first time. It wasn't planned or seduced with champagne and rose petals. Instead, it happened naturally as they held each other on Sebastian's couch, Elena wearing one of his sweaters, and Sebastian with his shirt unbuttoned and sleeves rolled up. Their kisses started soft and comforting, but gradually deepened with a need that had been building for weeks. When Sebastian's hands traced the curve of Elena's waist, she didn't pull away. When she unbuttoned his shirt completely, he helped her, never rushing, never demanding. "Are you sure?" he whispered against her throat, his hands trembling slightly. "I've never been more sure of anything," Elena replied, and she meant it. Sebastian carried her to his bedroom, where moonlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. He undressed her slowly, reverently, as if she were made of precious glass. Every touch was gentle, every kiss a promise. "I love you," he said as they moved together, and Elena felt the words settle into her heart like they had always belonged there. "I love you too," she whispered back. And in that moment, the walls they had both built around their hearts crumbled completely. Afterward, they lay entwined in the soft sheets, Sebastian's fingers tracing lazy patterns on Elena's back. The city sparkled below them, but they only had eyes for each other. "I want to tell you something," Sebastian said quietly. "Something I've never told anyone." Elena lifted her head to look at him, seeing vulnerability in his green eyes that took her breath away. "When I was building the company, I used to work 18-hour days. I told myself it was about success, about proving I could make something meaningful. But really, I was just trying to outrun loneliness." He paused, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "I haven't felt lonely once since I met you." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I know what you mean. I've spent so much time taking care of others that I forgot what it felt like to have someone take care of me." "I want to take care of you for the rest of my life," Sebastian said. And though it sounded like a proposal, Elena knew he was simply speaking from his heart. "And I want to show you every day what love looks like when it's real and honest and free," Elena replied. They talked until dawn, sharing dreams and fears and silly childhood memories. When Elena finally fell asleep in Sebastian's arms, she felt safer than she ever had before, but their perfect bubble was about to be tested. That morning, while Elena slept peacefully, Sebastian's phone buzzed with a call from his head of security. Paparazzi had somehow gotten photos of them together, and a major tabloid was preparing to run a story about the billionaire's mysterious new girlfriend. Sebastian stepped onto his balcony to take the call, his jaw tightening as he listened to the details. The story would hit newsstands by evening, complete with speculation about Elena's motives and questions about whether their relationship was real. As he ended the call, Sebastian looked back at Elena sleeping in his bed, her dark hair spread across his pillow like silk. She looked so peaceful, so trusting. The thought of her being thrust into the harsh spotlight of his public life made his chest tighten with protective fury. He had a choice to make, and only hours to make it. He could end things now, before the story broke, protecting Elena from the media storm that was coming. Or he could fight for what they had built together, knowing it might cost them both everything. Sebastian's hands gripped the balcony railing as he watched the sun rise over the city. Whatever came next, he knew. One thing for certain, losing Elena would destroy him in ways that no business failure ever could. The headline hit the internet at exactly 6:47 p.m. Tech billionaire's secret romance. Who is the mystery woman stealing Sebastian Crawford's heart? Elena was at the hospital, finishing her evening rounds, when her phone started buzzing incessantly. Confused, she glanced at the screen to see missed calls from her roommate, her sister, and several unknown numbers. "Elena!" Her colleague Maria rushed over, holding her phone. "Girl, you need to see this." Elena's heart sank as she saw her own face looking back at her from a gossip website. The photos showed her and Sebastian walking hand in hand through the park, sharing a kiss outside a restaurant, and laughing together on his balcony. The article speculated about her background, questioned her motives, and painted her as either a gold digger or a fairy tale princess, depending on which paragraph you read. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the comments. Some were supportive, calling their love story romantic. Others were cruel, suggesting she was using Sebastian for money, or that she'd gotten pregnant to trap him. The invasion of privacy felt like a physical assault. 20 minutes later, Sebastian burst through the hospital doors, his security team trailing behind him. He found Elena in a supply closet sitting on the floor with her knees drawn up to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Elena, sweetheart," he said gently, dismissing his security with a gesture. He knelt beside her, his heart breaking at the sight of her distress. "They don't even know me," Elena whispered, "but they've decided who I am based on who I love." Sebastian pulled her into his arms, his own anger burning hot. "I'm going to fix this. I'll have my lawyers shut down every website, every—" "You can't fight the entire internet, Sebastian," Elena said, pulling back to look at him. "This is your world. This is what loving you means." The pain in her voice cut through him like a blade. "Elena, please don't. I'm not leaving," she said firmly, surprising them both. "But I won't hide either. If we're going to do this, we do it honestly." That evening, Sebastian made a decision that shocked his entire PR team. Instead of issuing a denial or no comment, he posted a single photo on his rarely used social media accounts. Elena laughing with Sophia, the little girl from the gala, both of them covered in finger paint from an art therapy session. His caption was simple. "Some people collect things, others collect moments. Elena Martinez collects smiles from children who need them most. She's taught me that the best investment isn't in stocks or companies, it's in the people who make the world brighter. I'm proud to love her and grateful she loves me back." The post went viral within hours. The narrative began to shift as people shared stories of Elena's work at the hospital, her volunteer efforts, and her genuine kindness. Sebastian's business associates, initially concerned about the PR impact, found themselves impressed by the authenticity of his statement. But the real test came 2 weeks later, when Elena discovered she was pregnant. She stared at the positive test in her tiny apartment bathroom, her mind reeling. She and Sebastian had been careful, but careful wasn't foolproof. Her first thought wasn't fear, it was wonder. Their love had created something beautiful. Her second thought was terror. How would the world react to this news? When she told Sebastian that evening, he went very still. They were in his kitchen, and he'd been cooking dinner, something that still amazed Elena, seeing this powerful man chopping vegetables and humming softly to himself. Pregnant, he repeated quietly, setting down his knife. Elena's heart clenched. I know. It's not ideal timing with everything that's happening. Sebastian crossed to her in 2 strides, cupping her face in his hands. Elena, are you happy about this? The question caught her off guard. Yes, she said without hesitation. Scared, but happy. Then I'm happy too, he said simply. Actually, I'm terrified and overjoyed and completely overwhelmed, but mostly happy. Their kiss was gentle, full of promise and new beginnings. Sebastian proved his commitment in the days that followed. When a particularly vicious blogger suggested Elena had gotten pregnant intentionally, Sebastian didn't just issue a statement. He showed up at the hospital with an army of contractors and a check that would fund a new pediatric wing. Actions speak louder than words, he told the press conference he called. Elena has dedicated her life to helping children. Now I want to help her help even more. The gesture, combined with video testimonials from families Elena had helped, shifted public opinion dramatically. What had started as a scandal became a love story that captured hearts around the world. 6 months later, Elena walked down the aisle of a small chapel, her hand resting on her growing belly. She'd chosen a simple wedding. Just family, close friends, and the children from the hospital who had become like siblings to her. Sebastian waited at the altar in a simple black suit, his eyes never leaving her face. When she reached him, he whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Even with a baby bump and morning sickness hair, Elena teased. Especially then, he said seriously, "You're carrying our future." Their vows were simple but profound. Sebastian promised to love Elena's generous heart, to support her dreams, and to be the father their child deserved. Elena promised to help Sebastian remember that strength came not from power, but from vulnerability, and to build a life with him based on love, not fear. When they kissed as husband and wife, little Sophia threw flower petals in the air, and Marcus declared it the best wedding ever. 1 year later, Elena sat in the nursery of their new home, not Sebastian's penthouse, but a warm, welcoming house with a garden where children could play. Their daughter, Hope, slept peacefully in her arms while Sebastian read quarterly reports nearby, occasionally looking up to smile at his girls. "She's going to change the world," Elena said softly, stroking Hope's tiny fingers. "She already has," Sebastian replied, closing his laptop and joining them. "She gave me the courage to love without conditions." Elena leaned into her husband's embrace, watching their daughter sleep. The gentle promise Sebastian had made that first night, to be patient, to be real, to love her exactly as she was, had become the foundation of something beautiful beyond their wildest dreams. Outside, the world continued to spin with its deadlines and demands, but inside their home, time moved at the pace of baby giggles and whispered lullabies, of small hands learning to reach for light, and 2 hearts that had found their way to each other through the simple act of choosing love over fear. Sebastian pressed a kiss to Elena's temple, his hand resting over hers on their daughter's back. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For showing me that the best promises are the ones we keep not just with our words but with our whole lives." Elena smiled, remembering that night at the gala when she'd seen something lonely and searching in his eyes. Now those same eyes held nothing but contentment and hope. "I love you," she said simply. I love you too, he replied. Forever and gently, just like I promised. And in that moment, surrounded by the life they'd built together, Elena knew that some promises really could change everything. The end.